Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're getting ready for our last big panel before the final What's Your Play session. And just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Chris Watts. I'm the Executive Director of the National Foundation on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition, which is the congressionally chartered foundation that supports the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. And to introduce this discussion and really build on the remarks and leadership of the First Lady and the rest of the panelists and sessions today, I wanted to provide a few comments on how the President's Council and the Foundation are going to continue ensuring that the topics discussed today remain a national priority, as the First Lady mentioned. And so, 60 years ago this year, President Eisenhower started the President's Council because there was a dire need in this country, that American youth weren't as fit as their European counterparts, particularly for military preparedness, as the General mentioned earlier today. And as we reflect on those 60 years and understand that the mission today is even more important now than ever, we are really proud to announce a new vision for the future. And yesterday, the President's Council and the Foundation announced a campaign rallied around the idea that fitness is a journey. That fitness is a journey that's different for everyone, no matter what your background, ability, or path is. And that campaign is, we want to take the country on a journey from 0 to 60. And it's a national effort to scale and accelerate this vision that we all collectively have, and to work with partnerships across the spectrum, and so we can rally support and continue this progress and make sure that we're building upon the incredible support and leadership that this administration has, but really all these groups have rallied together into the future. We know that we need national grassroots best practices, really the innovators at the table to tackle this issue, and that's really what this panel here is about, is bringing the best practices, the leaders across the country to ensure that we continue this work. And with that said, I'd like to introduce Tom Ferry, who will lead this panel and bring on the guests. Thank you. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it, Chris. And, you know, boy, we're getting close to the end here, but we got a lot more exciting content for you. And this is a really important panel. You know, we've talked about, you know, the 8 strategies so far, and we have heard from the First Lady, and she was very clear and direct that we need to collectively address this problem, that there's a role for you know, the private sector, for everyone in this space to take clear and affirmative action. Very much a call to action on her part. So what this panel is, it's call for leadership, treetops to grassroots, how to scale a culture of health and sports. And in many ways, it's really about the how. How do we actually get there? How do we you know, deliver systems level change, as opposed to, you know, a nice story here and there, or a styrofoam check here or there? How do we actually change the system so those numbers that I threw out in the State of Play conversation this morning, 26.6% of kids ages 6 to 12 are, you know, active to a healthy level. How do we measurably lift that? How can we engage the key institutions to take meaningful next best steps? And so we have a terrific panel to help you think through this. So guys, why don't you come up? We've got Mary Davis, who is CEO of Special Olympics International. Here. We have Benita Fitzgerald Mosley, CEO of Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, USA. And a 1984 Olympic gold medalist with us in the year of the Olympics. We have Dr. Risa Levizo-Mori, who is President and CEO of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Risa. We have Jorge Perez, who is the Senior Vice President of Programs and the Y Experience for the YMCA of the USA. And we have Mr. Jim Whitehead, CEO of the American College of Sports Medicine, who may or may not get a chair. We may make you stand.
And I haven't even said anything yet, and they're taking away.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being part of this conversation. Well, given the title of the panel, "How to Scale a Culture of Health in Sports," I think we ought to put the first question to Dr. Loviso Mori. And you've done a lot of thinking about this. This is core to what the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is all about. But so, if you can, explain to people what is a culture of health, and what is the role that sport plays in delivering on that vision?
Okay. Well, usually when they talk about a culture of health, people get, what does that actually mean? So I start with health. First of all, think about health as not just being the absence of illness, but it is a state where you have complete mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. So it's a much broader definition than just the absence of health. And I would add not only the health of the individual, but the health of the community. And then, well, what about culture? Culture, yeah, it's art, it's how we think about literature, but the sociological definition of culture can be boiled down to the way we do things around here. How we do things in our family, how we do things in our school, how we do things in our workplace. Just how we do things. So what we're trying to create, I think, and what the First Lady spoke to so eloquently, is a culture in this country and in the world where health, people actually being healthier, is the easy choice. It happens easily where we live, learn, work, and play. And so what role does sport play in that? Well, we've heard all day how sport is critical to our sense of well-being mentally and physically. It's something that can be used to galvanize people in school, at work, in their community. And so sport can be an incredibly important vehicle for helping us get to a culture of health as a nation.
Interesting. And so equity is an important concept we should talk through here a little bit. How important is equity as a guiding consideration in making sports affordable and accessible to all kids, regardless of zip code or ability? And I want to go to you, Jorge, about this. You've worked in low-income urban communities. You understand these issues in a very deep way, and you also understand them from the perspective of an administrator who works with 2,700 YMCAs and 10,000 communities across the U.S. So talk to us about equity and as a guiding consideration.
About half of our YMCAs are either in low-income or serve low-income communities. And so this question of equity is not simply about access, and we heard that all throughout the day, giving kids an opportunity and particularly around fundraising and funding. But I'll give you just one example. I remember working with a particular YMCA, and they said, "Jorge, if you help us provide resources for them, these kids, then we'll be able to serve them through sports." And so we gave them a grant of $10,000, and after the season was over, or about halfway through the season, I asked how things were going, and they said, "Well, we're going to send you the check back." And what had happened is that simply offering access is not enough for some of these kids. And so equity is about making sure that we're addressing some other more basic challenges, like the ones that were mentioned earlier, the social, emotional, the cognitive, and the physical development of kids. And if children are given access but are not, they're not ready to receive it, either because they have not established the relationships that they need to establish or the trust that the parents need to have, then access is just not going to be enough. So equity is about making sure that you are lining up the needs of the child and then the opportunity that you're creating for him or her so that they can receive it.
Yep. And Benita, how does that intersect with your work? And I know you're new with the Laureate Sport for Good Foundation, and Jamie Schmill, who is with us here today, is the project manager down there. But how do you see that intersecting the idea of equity with your work in New Orleans, which you're dealing with, very low-income populations of high need?
And I believe Jamie spoke about this a little bit earlier, but I think our theory of change for our Model City program in New Orleans is that if you combine the sports-based youth development programs with building a coalition of kind of organizations, the community-based organizations, as well as the city, et cetera, then you're going to have deeper, faster, better, more sustainable results. And you're able to scale those organizations to be able to broaden their reach, to build their capacity so they can serve more kids, and ultimately, allow better accessibility to those programs and see the kinds of change that we're looking for, both around employability, making sure that those kids have the skills that they need to have sustained employability, to get better education, to obviously be healthier. But also there's a sense of community cohesion and community and social cohesion that comes out of that. So, all those are the outcomes we're looking for, but I think the way to do that, or at least our way to do that, and I think for funders around the country, is to be able to build those coalitions and then use sport as that tool for social change in the areas that we're trying to find.
Yeah. Now, Jim, one of the compelling developments in recent months was the release of the new National Physical Activity Plan, which has, for the first time, recommendations for the sports sector and language in there about access and inclusion. So can you tell us, A, what is the National Physical Activity Plan and how you see access and inclusion baked into it?
Great, excellent, thank you. The National Physical Activity Plan is really this framework for private public partnerships and collaboration, and we did a very systematic approach in developing the original one in regard to looking at what have other countries done in developing such plans for public health, for disease prevention, for addressing things, just looked at it, and we then incorporated a lot of those elements into the original National Physical Activity Plan. The second version, the new National Physical Activity Plan, was launched and released just a few weeks ago, and at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and then we did a congressional briefing associated with it. Here are some differences. Sports wasn't in the first National Physical Activity Plan, and it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. Countries all over the world use sports as a means to keep adults and kids active, but there just was a hesitancy about it at that point. It was not only incorporated this time, it's a full-blown sector, which just means there's a whole chapter addressing sports in the new National Physical Activity Plan, appropriately so. I had the pleasure of chairing the writing group. That writing group included Tom, who did a great job, plus representatives from the Y and all kinds of other organizations.
President's Council. Yep.
President's Council, absolutely. The thing that we really focused on there is, I think in a remarkable way, is using sports not just as a platform for increasing physical activity and health, but potentially for, as we've heard already, academic achievement, cognitive function, but going beyond that, economic success, community development, a multifaceted platform in regard to sports and physical activity that could have remarkable, if you're talking about game-changing for this country and our future, game-changing ability. And so, naturally so, inclusion, reduction of barriers for all people to participate in this reimagined sports platform was not only a good thing to do, it was a vital thing to do. So we've looked at, let's look at the populations that really may be restricted from sports now. Let's identify ways to reduce those barriers. Let's look at things that make sports affordable. Let's look at things that, have a real focus on free play and on organized play that are going to be very accessible. So this wasn't just an idea added to it. It was fundamentally important of really looking at sports and physical activity as a driver of positive change and forward progress in this country.
Why do you think there was that hesitance until now? I mean, what is it about our culture that is not fully embraced sport as a tool of public health?
Yeah, it was a number of things. I don't think that there were as many at that time. I know there weren't at that time as many intentional programs that underscore physical activity and health benefits in sport. And so it was kind of like, well, where are we exactly? It preceded all kinds of programs that are there now. So I think that was one part of it. And I just think as we've developed over time, and it's only been a few years since that first version to now, there's been significant progress on that, because I can assure you this was not a may we, perhaps we're going to do it. It was absolutely that we were going to do it. And we see the manifestation of this, the connection of sports to health, not only in the National Physical Activity Plan, but in many initiatives, some of which have been announced and some that will be announced in the months ahead.
So let me just jump in, because I think one reason that we've limited ourselves is that we focus too narrowly on how we measure success. One of the things that we've seen is that, for example, with the U.S. Soccer Foundation having tournaments in low-income communities, when you have a tournament, you get the community to come out. They're rooting for the kids, and you know what? They get to know each other. They build the social capital that then allows them to think about other changes that they want in their community. Well, if all you're measuring is how much physical activity the kids on the field get, you miss all of that other benefit to the community that ultimately helps with culture of health, with many other aspects of our society. So I think we have to broaden the lens and the measures we use for success.
Yeah, the idea being is that people like sport, they're drawn to it, and therefore once you have them in there, you can do something with them.
Do lots of things. Yeah.
And I think that's the whole intention around sports-based youth development, is that, using that tool to draw those kids in and teach them something along the way. I also think, and I was saying this last night at dinner, was that I feel like there was probably a hesitancy to some degree because people still think of sport, and in some cases physical activity as a nice to have and not a have to have. And I think, changing that shift, making it more of a culture of physical activity and sport where people feel like it's integrated in their lives, and that it's not something that it's apart from their lives. It's something that they need to include, and that it's it can have positive effects beyond just the physical onto the things that you were talking about, Jorge. And I think making that shift in the way we talk about things and really making those connections for people, school systems around the country, I think, need to rethink taking PE and physical education out of schools and recess, because we all know now it has positive outcomes with regard to cognitive educational outcomes as well. And so making that shift, I think is probably what's starting to happen now, because those connectors are happening to say, oh, this is a great youth development tool, this is a great education tool, and people are probably more receptive. And the last thing I'll say, this is an Olympic gold medalist saying this, but I think probably some of the barriers are around people thinking of it, as you said, too narrowly, as a competitive thing, sports. And there are a lot of people who had a bad experience in elementary school, middle school, high school, being cut from teams, not being included, not feeling like they're good enough. And quite frankly, not having the opportunity after 8 or 9 or 10 years old, after people have specialized in a sport,
Right.
not being able to even enter after a certain point. And so they think sports is a barrier, not as something that's inclusive.
Or as the First Lady was saying, not being able to afford it.
Yeah, that's another option.
I mean, we have very intentionally within Project Play just defined sport broadly as organized plus unstructured play, competition with either someone else or just with yourself. If it's a matter of trying to run around the block a little bit faster, it's a very inclusive thing. We've also defined, in the glossary, an athlete as borrowing from a certain company that introduced this idea about 15 years ago, Nike, that it's anyone with a body, and it's almost like we need to sort of reset the idea of, who is an athlete, what is sport, and therefore are you part of it or not? Because kids are now, when they're 9 or 10 years old, making a decision about whether they're an athlete or they're not. And if they make that decision, then do they see themselves as someone who's going to move their body through life? So, Mary, let me ask you this. I mean, you came all the way from Dublin. Thank you, by the way. maybe you can bring a little bit of overseas perspective to this, because Jim talked about how other countries have more intentionally baked sports into the idea of how to build public health. What have you seen elsewhere?
Well, before I answer that, I'll just talk a little bit about Special Olympics, because actually that's what it does in a sense. It opens the hearts and minds of people and of our athletes through sport. And I think it was President Kennedy that said, all of us do not have equal talent, but we should have equal opportunity to develop our talent. And then, of course, it was his sister, Eunice Kennedy, who saw that vision for Special Olympics and created that movement nearly 50 years ago. And it is truly an organisation that provides for everybody from the grassroots, and also invites in young people to play and to join, and communities to join.
Yeah.
And in joining, they learn so much about life, about ability, about overcoming barriers, and about acceptance. And that's one of the great sort of impacts of the Special Olympics programme and of the sports programme that we offer. So I just wanted to say that initially. But yes, of course, I have experience, particularly in Europe, and in many European countries, Northern Europe in particular, and my own country, Ireland, of course, we have a ministry for sport. So, and then you would have a sports council. So there's the Irish Sports Council, or Sport UK, Sport England, and all of these are a great way of bringing credibility to sport, because we mentioned that sport, is sometimes not taken seriously unless it's at a very high level. But yet the importance and the importance from a health perspective are so critical to a country. So I think that brings a gravitas and a sense of leadership, although we all know that the majority of sport happens at grassroots level, and the grassroots is critically important to the development of sport. But I think you need to have both as well. And of course, governments then are committed, and they're showing that they care as a country for the well-being, for the wellness, for the sport, for the health and the welfare of the individual. And the same thing actually in Canada. Canada has Sport Canada, who puts a lot of funding into the development of sport and the development of coaches. It's all around opportunities, but it's all around education as well, and ensuring that our coaches are well trained, who provide opportunities for grassroots sport, because coaches are very well trained, providing elite opportunities, but not so much. It's more seen at grassroots level, oh sure, it's just a bit of fun. But surely it's about people at whatever level being the best that they can do. And again, that's what we find through our Special Olympics experience. It's about ensuring that our athletes have the opportunity to grow and develop and be the very best that they can. And that's what we ask of all of us in our lives, to be the best that we can. And sport really offers that opportunity. So therefore, we should ensure that education is a top priority in terms of educating our coaches that work with young children. Again, through the unified sports program that we offer, young people have the opportunity to play with our Special Olympics athletes. And the unique thing about Special Olympics is that all of our athletes are ability grouped. So it's not about the fastest or the greatest. It's about being able to participate at your own level and being the best within that level. So young people that come in without an intellectual disability get to experience that as well. And oftentimes in a regular setting, they don't have the opportunity to do that, and they are often excluded or left out, and therefore get a negative experience. So the whole ethos of Special Olympics in let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. We could all, I think, take a lesson from that for society as a whole.
Yeah, it's a very powerful vision. Obviously, Special Olympics have had a lot of success in taking a powerful vision and applying a set of strategies and tactics and pushing it down into the grassroots where it has really taken off. Any lessons learned? Any guidance? Any tactical guidance on as we think about how to scale a culture of health and sports in this country?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it is important to have a strategy, to have a strategic plan, and we're very fortunate because I just came into the position of CEO very recently, but in accepting that position, I also had a strategic plan that's just been developed. But it was a plan that didn't come from the top. It was a plan that was developed by the grassroots organization, and everybody had an input. We have 170 countries, and every single member had an opportunity to contribute and be part. So it was a very collaborative process, and therefore people had that feeling that they had skin in the game and that they were collaborated with, so therefore they felt an ownership of it. And I think that's important, that everybody feels that they have an ownership. And then I think how you then cascade that right down to the local level, having developed it. But leadership is critically important. I think having the right leadership, great things can happen as a result of that. And we put a lot of effort into building capacity in our leaders. We have established a leadership academy, and we join partners with the corporate community, with ESPN. We've just announced a renewal of our partnership today with them, but with many other corporate organizations as well, like Bain, like Goldman Sachs, like CEB in the leadership field, and they help us to run the academy and to educate our leaders so that they can then understand the importance of building capacities and providing opportunities at a local level. So I would say leadership, having the plan. There are 3 S's in success. One is that you must see, in my view, you must see the big picture, the vision of what you want to achieve. The second S, I would say, stands for that you've got to start it, because oftentimes we all can have great visions but not start anything, or we can have great plans and they sit on the shelf forever. So it's about starting it. And the third S, I would say, is about sticking with it, because you have to then implement, and stick with it until you see the success. And the impact can be phenomenal. And for us, of course, the impact is that we not just transform the lives of Special Olympics athletes, but we also, as I said earlier, transform the lives of the general public in terms of their behavior and their acceptance of differences.
Yep. And I want to get a reaction from other panels, but I have one follow on what you just said there. One thing you've done very well is work effectively with the media. So ESPN televised the Special Olympics this year,
That's right.
Live for a multi-day period for a while. We have seen a lot of storytelling done around your athletes. One of the real challenges in this space is just simply putting a face on the disenfranchised. How have you done it? How have you been able to get the media to tell your stories, and in this case, cover your event?
Well, we have hundreds of millions of wonderful stories from around the world, and it's a matter of packaging those stories and telling them in a way that is exciting and interesting for the media. So, for example, we have one athlete, she's actually a member of our board, Loretta Claiborne, who her mother was told when she was born that she would never come to any good, and just, leave her aside, don't worry. That was 40 years ago. Well, Loretta went on to run 27 marathons. So not many of us can sit and boast that we have run 27 marathons. So when you hear stories of the human endeavor of breaking down barriers, of overcoming the most incredible obstacles in your life to be the best that you possibly could be, and then go on to participate in Special Olympics and win against yourself. That's very powerful, and it's a great story to tell. And ESPN has done a wonderful job on our behalf in telling that story.
Any lessons, she just shared 3 or 4 of them, about building, taking a movement from the treetops down the grassroots. Anybody really want to reflect on anything she just said?
I'll jump in on a couple. First of all, on leadership, I think you're absolutely right. And I would just add on, I think we've heard all day today, you've got to have leadership across sectors. None of us can move this individually in a sector. You've got to have the business sector, you've got to have education, you've got to have government, and thinking about how we create an environment, a built environment that enables us to do this. So leadership is critical. Having leadership across sectors and getting them to work together is, I think, a key component of that. And I think your S's are absolutely correct. I would just add measurement to that. Yeah. Because if we aren't measuring our success and being able to incrementally improve, we aren't going to necessarily get to the North Star that we're trying to achieve. So I would just add those two friendly amendments to
Absolutely, and I totally agree with measurement, yeah, as well. It's really important. It's also motivating for people to have some measurement that they can, a goal they can reach to as well.
It's fundamental to sports, right? And
yes.
It's got to be local and relevant to you.
Absolutely.
And I know we've already said this, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to say it again. It's what gets measured. If you're measuring trophies and numbers and the number of competitive events, it's whether you're measuring those things or the human developmental process. And I think what you're hearing us all say is, and at least for the YMCA, when the YMCA decided to get into sports, when it decided to create things like basketball, it did so because it was leaders were asking, what are we going to do with these guys that have nothing to do? And what can we give them to do that would develop them as human beings? And so they put a peach basket up on one end of a room and they called it basketball. But it wasn't so that they could just play sports for sports' sake. It was so they could play sports so that they could develop as human beings. Those are the measurements we need to be about.
Benito, let me ask you this. I mean, so sport-based youth development is a relatively new term.
Right.
We just talked about measurement. How do we measure success in sport-based youth development?
So, I think there's really two ways that we're trying to do that in New Orleans. One is obviously the impact that the programs and the coalition, and so it's really kind of three parts. We're the backbone organization for a group of organizations in New Orleans, but then we also have secondly built this coalition, and thirdly, we're funded. We have some grant partners, and we've poured about $500,000 into that community, and we've gotten 21,000 kids active. But ultimately, you have to. What was your question? I lost my train of thought.
How do you measure?
So we're measured in
success?
two ways. One is obviously the impact that on the 21,000 kids and the activities and the organizations and the programs that they're doing. How well have those organizations scaled? How much more capacity do they have? But the second thing that we're doing is more of a developmental evaluation around the backbone role itself. And what are the nuances to that? What's success look like in that? So that we are able to now think about going to a different city in Atlanta. We'll be talking more about that probably in the next several weeks. But Mercedes-Benz is one of our key partners. They have the Superdome in New Orleans, and they are building a new Mercedes-Benz stadium in Atlanta. And contiguous with that is the west side of Atlanta, which is one of the poorest, most underserved communities really in the country. And so we want to know, can we take the lessons we've learned, both, as far as the youth-based, sport-based youth development, but also in serving in that background role. What have we learned, and what lessons can we apply when we move to another city? And then ultimately, how can we scale that, in other communities? If we can't go deep, if we can't pour $500,000 into every community, if we can't physically put employees there and be the backbone organization, but can we apply those lessons and teach other communities to be able to band together in a similar way and have similar results? And I would say back to the measurement and piece of it, that having a common theory of change, having a common set of goals that you're all trying to reach, and how do you communicate around that? And then how do you, what is that system of collaboration? And that's kind of part of evaluating that backbone role is, what are we doing? How are we interacting with each other? Organizations that would normally be in competition with one another, for participants, for money, for visibility, for staff, for all kinds of things. How do we get them to work together and see that there's a win-win, that, the the group of them can ultimately achieve far more than they could independently.
I think that's a really important point. And you asked me about some of the countries around the world, but in many European countries, through the sports councils, they would have local sports partnerships. And I think that is a great initiative at local level, because you get all of the various sports and the partners in a very inclusive way to come together and to plan the sport in their community. And then you don't get those clashes, because that's often what's happened. There's even clashes on a Saturday morning between one sport and another sport, and they're vying for young people to join their sport. Whereas if people come together and do it in a collaborative way, then you cut out all of that. So I think that's one piece of advice, certainly coming from some countries in Europe and the way they do their business in relation to the organisation of sport at grassroots level. And other partnerships as well. I mean, for instance, we would partner with national governing bodies of sport so that they can deliver then on the coaching side, on the officiating side. So really they can do the job for us, because we don't have the capacity to do it ourselves.
Right.
So building partners is an important part of the development of sport.
Well, one advantage you have, Jorge, is unlike Laureus, which you're a foundation, and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is, it's a building in New Jersey with a lot of grant making. You have actual facilities. You are in 2,700 different communities. You got places. So how do you look at? I mean, how can the why be useful in taking a vision of access to sport down to the community level? Given that you have these. Not just places, but credibility and networks, and you've been in these communities for a while.
Well, the YMCA over the last several years, in part because of the help of organizations like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, has begun to understand itself as not just a place where people come, a place where kids come and play, but also a member of a greater community. And that it sees itself as needing to be involved in the conversation at whatever level that community needs it to be. Yes, we have 2,700 locations, but we actually have some 950 individual independent nonprofits, which is a whole other discussion on how to help that many individuals. But what that also means that every YMCA adjusts and reacts to the needs of that community. Sometimes they serve as backbone organizations. Sometimes they just simply provide services. So what we're hoping will happen, much like we've done in some of these other arenas like diabetes prevention, but that we begin to look at sports, youth sports or youth development, and that we begin to play this role of shaping the conversation so that it is not just simply about kids being active, and that's a great and important thing, but that it is about kids being active for a purpose, so that they are stronger social, emotionally, cognitively, and physically. And so we've entered in some pretty great conversations in cities all over the country where these conversations are taking place. And the difficulty is translating all of this research and all of these ideas down to that 17-year-old who will coach the team, or the coach who wants to volunteer and relive his glory days, and synthesize all this stuff. And we are really landing on this idea of 3 words: achievement, belonging, and relationship. 3 things we want to make sure that every kid experiences, that they're learning something new every single day they're coming in our work, in our space, that they get a sense of belonging to be part of something greater than themselves, and that they build very healthy relationships with others. And if you think sports naturally does that, when we researched all of our programs, it scored the lowest in those areas.
Yeah.
Because what we learned is that if you're not intentional, then it doesn't intentionally happen, even if the program itself is designed to do those things.
Right. You can't just roll out the ball and expect good things to. It's like a neutral institution, right? I mean, it's all what you do with it. Yeah.
It's like what Billie Jean was saying. It wasn't about having the racket and the court. was having the right coach to get
Yes.
her started.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Jim?
One thing that the American College of Sports Medicine and others have been doing within the National Academy of Sciences and Institute of Medicine is really looking at what are these opportunities within communities, these assets. Certainly the Ys are one, but there are myriad kind of organizations and schools, for one, is a great pivot. I mean, there are so many opportunities available to us to use sports and physical activity to really make progress in very intentional ways. The whole question is not, gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to find these assets? They're there. The point really is trying to find the model. That what really is the hub that brings them together, that integrates them? By what guidelines should they function? So what I'm impressed with this country and arguably around the world is that communities have so many assets that with just a little bit of modification can become powerful platforms for improvement of health. But all these other benefits that we're talking about, I look at that. But the one thing that we're looking in the initiative that I was talking about within the Institute of Medicine is just how do these assets interrelate to each other? What's the model what's the catalyst that starts bringing them together? And of course, part of that is certainly embedded in Project Play. That's what kind of the overall model, the blueprint of that is. But we are a rich country and quite frankly, a rich planet in regard to the assets that can be activated to make the progress that we're talking about.
Can this be done without a national policy on sports like Canada has, like the UK has, like Australia has, like pretty much everywhere has a policy on sport? And it's something, the work group that you chaired called for, the creation of a national policy on sport that, quote, that emphasizes the importance of sports as a vehicle for promoting and sustaining a physically active population.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we as a group came up with that, and then the question is, what is that exactly a national policy? Is that something legislated? Is that something that is coming out of the private sector that becomes the model? I think that there are a lot of initiatives there. I do think that a national policy that does reflect the little d democratization in this country, the decentralization of things. You're not overly prescriptive about things, but a national policy that set directions, that gave guidance as to what to do, that empowered local organizations to be even more successful in their efforts. That kind of national policy, I think, could be powerful. Just lastly on this past weekend, I was speaking with a former member of Congress who played a remarkable role, heroic role in youth sports, and posed that question, what would a national policy look like? And I think we began that conversation, we didn't end it, but the point of, as Project Play does, as the National Physical Activity Plan does, and so many things coming together, it's really identifying not gaps, but really opportunities. We just need to determine what is the best approach to that works well within this country and that really does accelerate and elevate our progress.
Mary, have you seen, how has the policy been useful, if at all, in some of the countries you work in?
I think it has been useful in providing leadership and also giving, as I said earlier, that gravitas, that credibility to sport at grassroots level so that it's taken serious. And when there's a commitment there from the leaders of the country, from government, you find that people do listen because, as I said, sport, apart from elite sport, sometimes is not taken so serious. Like I remember when I went to college and I came from a local community, I had really got good grades in school and I was going to study physical education, and I remember my mother's friends saying, what on earth is she doing that for? She's going to, with those grades, and she's going off to study sport, as if like that was a crazy thing for me to do. I should be doing something else. So it's just not seeing the relevance or the importance and the health benefits of, and the huge saving that it is for governments, when you do provide a quality physical activity program that's all encompassing in relation to the health and well-being and the fitness of the nation.
All right, so you have a policy in place, say it ends up getting developed. I mean, who actually ends up enforcing it, and I don't know. I mean, in the U.S., the closest thing we have to a sports ministry is the U.S. Olympic Committee, which in 1978, Congress put in charge of coordinating amateur sports activity, unfunded mandate, and it hasn't been the highest priority of the U.S. Olympic Committee. Benita, you were one of the top officials there, until leaving for Laureus. What do you see the role of the USOC being as we move forward?
So, I mean, I see one definite parallel between Laureus, Sport for Good, and the USOC is that, Laureus has the Laureus Academy, which, is 50 plus iconic athletes and 150 ambassadors around the world. And the USOC, the IOC, both have, huge numbers of inspirational athletes that people can look for. So I really do see, we've been talking about sport as a tool for social change, sport-based youth development. I don't want to overlook the impact that elite athletes have too on this landscape and inspiring people, giving somebody, people something to aspire to, something to look forward to. And for kids, young kids, sometimes that is the motivation for them to get up in the morning and go, get the ball in their hand or lace up some track shoes. And so I think that's huge. I think another role that they can play is building these alliances. I think that they don't have to do it themselves. They've got a budget that they have decided is going towards the development of elite athletes. But they've got two issues. One is what the First Lady was talking about, and that's fans. Where you're going to get more fans of Olympic sport if they aren't participating in the 40 plus Olympic sports that we have. And secondly, it's pipeline. How are we going to continue to put more and more athletes on the podium if we don't have them filling the pipeline? If they're not healthy enough to join the armed services, they're certainly not healthy enough to participate in the Olympic Games. And so they've got certainly two huge opportunities in front of them in order to really engage in this. One of the areas that I had talked to Scott Blackman, who's the CEO, is my former boss, and I talked to him about building these alliances and also maybe putting a challenge out to schools across the country to say, put PE back in the schools, put physical education and recess back in the schools, get kids active again, have school systems pledge, schools pledge to do that. I think that the simple action like that, where schools again say, this is the must-have, this is something that's this is physical education. Its part is as important as anything else to the health and well-being of our students and their achievement in the classroom. And so those are ways that I think that the USOC could certainly do it without a huge heavy lift and still be able to focus on getting athletes on the podium at the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Jim?
I think one of the shifts, because that's what we're about, pivoting things and nudging progress along. When the First Lady spoke today, she talked about funding, support for these things that we're imagining as an investment, not a cost, an investment. And I think it would really be a net investment. In other words, it is an investment that yields more benefit, more gains than anything that it ever takes in regard to putting money into it. Because just from what we're talking about, just on the health, sports, physical literacy, these kind of elements, everything is there in regard to showing how that would be a net savings for this country. We are never going to be able to outspend the rate in which people are getting sick based on poor lifestyle. And so that's one thing. And then you start factoring in cognitive function and academic achievement and the benefits of individual development and community enhancement. It's the greatest bargain, arguably, that there could be. Yeah. So in regard to national policy, again, I think the First Lady framed it well, that it's an investment that yields net benefit. And the real point is trying to get us to where we all collectively recognize that and then budget accordingly.
Laureus is a global organization, and they've done studies in the UK that show for every pound they put into sport-based youth development programs, they've saved 5 pounds on the other side of it. So it's almost, it's not even a wash. It's actually you save money and obviously have greater benefit.
Yeah, we've done same research in Canada found for every dollar, $5 saved. Yeah.
Interesting. Risa?
So I was just going to say, we talk about policy, and that always seems so overwhelming and hard to do. But there's an urgency here. We need to make policy, but we also got to save this generation of kids that are out there right now. And we can do that by looking at the trusted organizations in every community. The Y is the trusted organization in some communities. You have 2,700, you don't have every community. I guarantee you there's a trusted organization that can start to build these infrastructures within their community. And we've got to start that today. We can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, the First Lady really made a call for corporate America to step up and address the problem. I mean, what do you see? Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has made a big bet on physical activity moving forward. How do you see RWJ's role in this space and catalyzing some of these actions that people have prioritized?
Yeah. Well, you use the word catalyze. I think that there is no one way that we're going to do this as a nation. We believe that we've got to measure what's happening in communities all around the country, and so we measure health in every single county. And then we've got to try to do our part to bring people together, those leaders across sectors, give them tools and the opportunity to measure progress. And then connect the places that are doing similar actions so that they can learn from each other. It's sort of the way we've changed things in this country all along. It's by doing it at a local level and then having that roll up to a large policy.
How much time do we have left? I want to cut into Q&A time. Does anybody know?
0.
This is flashing
Tom,
zero.
Out?
Tom?
Is that a wrap up?
So we can adjust that.
That's us, please. Oh, I'm so sorry. Robbed you of your time.
You got wrapped up.
But it was a great conversation. So some of these folks will be around for the reception. You can ask your questions to them at that time. So I want to thank everyone. Terrific panel, guys. Great conversation. Let's keep it going. So next, let me see here. Oh, I'd like to introduce, everybody can leave here. I'd like to introduce Elliot Gerson, who will come up and lead us into our next session, which is called What's Your Play? Welcome, Elliot. Yep. And Elliot is the Executive Vice President of the Aspen Institute and the guy who oversees our program.
Nothing but a privilege, I'll have you.
Welcome. Take care.
Well, this has been a long but extremely wonderful day, and I have to say it's been a great privilege for the Aspen Institute to see the tremendous development of this program. And I just want to take this opportunity again to thank you, Tom, for your vision and leadership, and Risa. This wouldn't happen without the passion that they bring to this. The Aspen Institute is a large organization. I'm responsible for all of our policy programs and our public programs. We actually have more than 30 policy programs, and Sports and Society that Tom runs is just one of those. It's one of my favorites. I hope this isn't on tape, but nonetheless it is. But I want you to understand that all of our programs, or most of our programs, do some convenings like this. But we're not in the convening business. The truth is, we are in the action business. A mantra of what we do is really thoughts leading to action, ideas leading to action. We don't get excited about just bringing people together to talk. What we get excited about is what happens after people come together. And in that regard, I was so moved by the comments by Billie Jean King at talking about her motivation and how she was motivated not to be the best tennis player in the world, but to change the world. And I think in a real sense, that is the motivation of all of our policy programs, to do something to make the world a better place. And thinking about being inspired, how could we not be inspired by the First Lady today? And in particular, she noticed, absolutely correctly, that the people in this room already have the playbook. They already have the passion. Everybody in this room already understands in your bones why this is so important and why equity for sport and play is of paramount importance for this country and indeed for the world. So the challenge now really is for all of us to think about ways in which we can go home, we can go back to our own communities and own organizations and really ramp this up as a national movement toward change. We've talked about measurement. We all know what we need to have, and I hope very much that is what we are now going to see. This next session is really all about leading to that. And so what I'm going to do very simply is bring Chris Watts back up here to facilitate the session. Chris, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you for your support and leadership as well. And hello again, everyone. And what a day we've had. And how great to end this long but exciting day with some great announcements that Elliot mentioned, the commitment to action. Hopefully these announcements during this What's Your Play session will inspire everyone in the room to think about what your play can be. That is how you can take what you've learned today, some of the strategies and discussions we've had, to bring back to your organizations across the country and even the world with some of our international folks, to create the kind of paradigm shift that has been discussed throughout the program. What Your Play recognizes organizations that are taking actions that are inspired to support a project play strategy. Actions can include a policy change, a new program or initiative, a strategic investment. All announcements are featured on the Project Play Report website, which was available, projectplay.us. And these plays have been identified in the report and must not have been made before today. So these are all brand new investments and commitments that organizations across the country have been working towards in partnership with Aspen. The Project Play team has received dozens of submissions this year, forcing them to be even more highly selective than in the past. That doesn't mean there aren't good stuff happening across the country, but these are the few that have seemed particularly meaningful. So first up, to make an announcement related to the first play in the playbook, Ask Kids What They Want, is Michael Fletcher from The Undefeated, which is ESPN's new multimedia platform that will explore the intersection of sports, race, and culture.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. The Undefeated, I don't know how many people have heard of it before this moment, but we launched today. And so it's a momentous day for the Undefeated. And the thing about it, listening to the sessions today, it feels like so many of these issues are kind of in our sweet spot. We're here to sort of write about issues of race, sports, and culture, that intersection, about how those issues kind of shape our culture, shape our nation, and can help uplift people. So our commitment is to write about these issues. We're going to be a platform where people can come to us, particularly with solutions, and we'll be interested in sort of peeling back some of those ideas, looking at what's working, what's not working in some cases, but being a forum for a lot of your ideas. Thank you so much.
All right, that's great. Okay, play number two, or the commitment number two, is about reintroducing free play. This is made by 241 Sports, apologies. And I'm going to bring up Steve Boyle, which is the CEO and founder. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So we reintroduced free play deliberately into our curriculum. So we have a camp that kids sample sports, and they now can choose free play and fundamental movement skills as one of the options. But we concurrently formed the Plus Club, physical literacy using sports sampling, that we're piloting around the country right now, and we've written free play into the curriculum. So it's really taking a look at physical literacy in a different way, food as fuel, mindfulness as happiness, and sport as play. And so I just want to thank Tom and Risa and Aspen for recognizing us. And if you're interested, there's a video about it at 241 Sports. So thank you all very much.
All right, the next play is another reintroduced free play commitment, and this is with the Sylvania Recreation District, and I'm bringing up Mike McMahon, the operations manager.
It was just about a year ago that Sylvania Recreation District kind of took a leap and decided to utilize the project play principles in pretty much everything we do with our youth sports. And it was shortly after that we made a call to a local production company, a creative team called Madhouse Productions out of Toledo, Ohio. And they answered the call in a big way. We shared with them the playbook, some of the things that we're doing, some of the things that the Aspen Institute and Project Play are doing. And their creative team came up with that video that we were able to watch this morning to open up the ceremonies. So what I would like to do now is just let everybody know that if you feel that video would be beneficial in any way to you and your organizations or your communities, we would like to give you that opportunity to use it any way you seem fit, as long as it's working within the project play principles. I'm sure that Tom and the Aspen Institute people and Risa will have some details on how you can access that video and even personalize it in ways to put your logo and different message on there a little bit. So thank you very much.
All right, next play, encourage sports sampling. This is with USA Field Hockey, bringing up Sally Goggin, the National Development Director.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. Again, I'm Sally Goggin, representing USA Field Hockey. And I just want to give you a little bit of a background about field hockey since we're talking about sports sampling. Field hockey is one of the most widely played and popular sports in the world. It's played in over 130 different countries. And globally, it's played by both men and women. And in the United States, many people don't realize that we have both a men's and a women's national team, and that our women's national team is currently ranked 7th in the world and will be competing in Rio, vying for a medal. So we're very excited about that. In the United States, field hockey is played in pockets. It's played almost exclusively by girls interscholastically in 25 states. Many believe that in the United States, field hockey is expensive and elitist, and I'm here to debunk that myth. It's not. It's just like soccer, except you also need a stick. Everyone in this room understands the value of sports and physical activity, and we want all children to get to participate in many different sports, including field hockey. In 2/3 of the country, in high school, there's no fall field sport for girls. And according to the National Federation of High Schools, in 2015, 58% of boys participate in high school sports compared to 42% of girls. And that number is even more skewed in the fall, which is such an important season in getting engaged in your school. It's as skewed as 70% boys, 30% girls. And we feel that field hockey could really make a difference. So USA Field Hockey wants to make a play to activate and engage more student athletes. In addition to our fundamental field hockey program, which is a free equipment grant to introduce field hockey in PE to boys and girls, we are introducing a new program called the School Starter Program. We're working with our sponsors Harrow Sports, Goal Sports, Cranberry, Oboe, and Grays to provide dramatically discounted equipment to schools of all levels, elementary, middle, and high school, to make it possible to add field hockey. By reducing the startup costs, we hope that more schools will be able to introduce the program, and especially during, again, that important fall season. So we hope this School Starter Initiative will both make a play and make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. All right, the next play, Revitalizing In-Town Leagues. And this is with Colorado Storm Soccer Association. And I'm bringing up Stephanie Gabbard, who's the Director of Development.
All right, I'm with Colorado Storm Soccer Association. We're the biggest youth sport organization in Colorado with over 7,500 kids in our club across the Front Range. And our vision is to be the best developmental club in the country. We feel we need to do that by providing positive early experiences in sport for kids, by training our athletes, particularly our higher achieving athletes, to develop to their highest potential, but also, and most important, particularly now, is a responsibility to access for all kids to be able to be a part of that. So a couple of things that we're doing. One, we're establishing new partnerships with organizations that work within these communities that we can help through our support by leveraging resources, access to our resources, and access to technical assistance from our club so that we're not displacing good programs that are already occurring and doing good work but might need some support. And secondly, by creating new programs that we'll be implementing starting this fall through soccer program in communities that don't have those opportunities, as well as establishing new leagues in those communities that are held within the community, so you take away the barriers of transportation and economics, as well as these are low or no cost programs for the kids. And then our intention through all of this is to show all youth sport organizations that responsibility to this access is a big one, and anybody can do it if we can do it. It's out there for everyone to start implementing and making it part of your platform as well. So thank you.
All right, for the next play, Think Small. This is with Santa Ynez Valley Community Aquatics Foundation, and Gary Hull Jr., Board of Directors, is going to present the next play.
I was so inspired by last year's summit that, it's an Olympic year, and USA Swimming will host the Olympic trials in Omaha. They construct a stainless steel swimming pool in a basketball arena. After the conclusion of that meet, it will be deconstructed, put in a shipping container, and sent to the Santa Ynez Valley High School, where it will be put in ground. Through joint use agreement, we are opening up all the facilities at the high school to the public. We'll provide after-school programming for a variety of populations that reside in the Santa Ynez Valley. We've done this through support from the city and through the Chumash Native American tribe, and very much looking forward to working with the local schools to provide after-school bus drop-offs for that after-school program.
That's awesome. All right, for Design for Development, I'm going to bring up David Corner, the Director of Training Education for Promote the Youth Foundation.
A little bit shorter than our last speaker here. I'm with the Promote the Youth Foundation out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We have developed an athletic development software based on a problem that we have faced in the city of Charlotte, where we have gone from a PE curriculum down to one every 8 days. So we developed a long-term athletic development software that we will be implementing into the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools this next school year in September. That allows the teachers as well as the coaching staff throughout the entire school district to administer motor skill development training according to their teams or their classroom as a whole, based on where they stand on a development standpoint throughout the entire class. And it also allows the athletes and the students to work on it outside in their homes or at recess outside of school. And this will be our first launch. We hope to have many, many more throughout the nation after that. Thank you very much.
For the play Train All Coaches, we're bringing up Sally Bernard, the board president and co-founder of Ascendigo Autism Services. Ascendigo Autism Services. Thank you.
Okay, the organization is Ascendigo Autism Services, and our announcement is a curriculum to teach sports to children and adults with autism. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disability, now affects 2% of children, presents with many challenges that lead to social isolation and barriers to physical activities. But engagement in sports can be had at a high level if you apply specialized learning techniques for this population. So our organization, Ascendigo, has been providing outdoor adventure sports to adults and kids with autism. We've trained many staff, and we've perfected these techniques to enhance sports learning. The curriculum integrates evidence-based practices from both autism therapeutics and the sports world. We have a faculty of diverse experts, and this curriculum is designed to be disseminated to coaches, instructors, teachers, support providers throughout the country. We are going into beta testing for the Level 1 Practices and Principles course this summer, and expect to launch in 2017.
For the play on emphasizing prevention with the National Council of Youth Sports, bring up Sally Johnson, the Executive Director.
So the National Council of Youth Sports, our members serve over 60 million registered participants in organized youth sports. Some of those youngsters play more than one sport, so that equates to about 44 million actual boys and girls. We have 6 new initiatives to manage safer play. 1, we're uniting with America's leading orthopedic hospital surgeons on sports injury prevention and rehabilitation education. 2, we're partnering with Tufts University Child Obesity, Healthy Kids Out of School on their Coaching Healthy Habits training. We're rallying around 3 healthy principles: to drink right, to move more, and to snack smart. 3, we're promoting Privet's electronic pre-participation medical history for athletic trainers, coaches, athletic departments, first responders, and medical personnel. And 4, in just a couple weeks, we will be releasing a new emergency response mobile app that will be free for pre-high school age athletes and parents. 5, we're joining forces actually with the National Sports Concussion Coalition, advocating for concussion laws in all 50 states to be in compliance with the Listad law at minimum. And lastly, we're working literally from the bottom up on a new initiative with a synthetic turf system that plays better and safer than any other turf system and can be tailored to every sport. It's a replicated grass. It minimizes the surface impact for safer fields and facilities, lowering the chance of concussion and helping to prevent injuries. Thank you to Tom Ferry, your team, the Aspen Institute. We appreciate this honorable recognition.
And our last 2 plays are both in Call for Leadership. The first one is with Under Armour, who I'm bringing up Stacey Ulrich, the Senior Director of Global Philanthropy.
All right, you guys are almost done, I promise. As representing the teammates that live right down the road in Baltimore, we're focused strongly on making our hometown great, what we call our house. And Baltimore, as many of you know, is the city where innovation has begun. 200 years ago, we are the proud, a poet started the Star-Spangled Banner, or wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. And just 4 years after that, Baltimore literally lit the first U.S. city light. So time and time again, innovation continues to happen in Baltimore, except unfortunately, like many of you all, we run into some of the same challenges. So we are committed to creating a new narrative and working with the Aspen Institute and Project Play to define what the model city for Baltimore looks like. So we're excited to work on this initiative to not only create great places for kids to play, coaches, friends over at Coaching Corp, having the training that they need, and community sports programming, as well as those wraparound services that are critical so that kids can play for all skill levels. We are excited to be here today, but also to work with our colleagues in all professional sports, as well as brands, to make sure that we as a collective group make sure that all kids have that access. So hopefully together, everybody can find the role that they can play to make this a great commitment. So thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. And before our last play, we're going to show a short video that really connects what Stacy mentioned with the next presenter, which is the YMCA of the USA.
I'm here. Can you see me? Because I feel like I'm invisible. Like this whole place is invisible. If it weren't for the nightly news, no one would even think of this place. But down here, things look different. Down here, our spirits are bright and our dreams are vivid. And if given a chance, that's what the world would see.
All right, from the YMCA of the USA, Jorge Perez, Senior Vice President, Programs in the Y Experience.
Thank you.
That's all right.
I don't know how many of you guys have been seeing our candidate for president on TV, Zoe, a young lady that we hope represents the many kids that are in our programs that we're developing, because we believe we are, as many of you, developing that president, the president that will run for office in about 40 or 50 years. And so when we talked about social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development, we also wanted to say the same thing in terms of developing those three areas in youth sports. And we are at a stage in the YMCA's life that we're taking a look at what we're doing across the country in this space. We had launched this effort to reinvigorate, to revitalize our youth sports programs, and then we came across Project Play's material and said, well, our work's done. And so our commitment as one of the largest youth sports organizations serving over 2 million kids every year, and as one of the original innovators in this space, is to fully endorse and adopt the Aspen Institute's Sports and Society Program Solutions for Youth Sports, and to work over the next several months, several years, to adopt all of the different plays into all of our programs, not just within youth sports, but in our after-school programs, our day camp programs, our resident camp programs. Anywhere kids gather, we want to give kids an opportunity to play. And then finally, we want to work closely with the Aspen Institute Sports and Society Program staff and leaders to determine the best way to do this and to utilize and to ultimately deliver the commitments to young people, much as you saw in the video, and to the representative we call Zoe, so that we can be successful in developing kids social, emotionally, cognitively, and physically. And so that's our commitment and our pledge today.
Well, congratulations all. I mean, let's give another round of applause for all these folks that are making a commitment towards the vision, sport for all, play for life. And so I think you guys are pausing for a photo opportunity right now, so you guys can bring it in.
Good.
All right, we're about to wrap up, but before we do, we all know this doesn't end now. And for these groups, they're going to go back to the communities and launch these various initiatives. But for everyone here, Project Play wants to hear from you and wants to hear your play. And so make a commitment from filling out the form. You see on the screens, bit.ly.com/ourplay. And you could earn recognition next year or in the coming weeks and months on the Project Play website. Remember that play has to be new, it has to be meaningful, specific, and it has to sync with one of the strategies from the Project Play report. And before Tom comes up to wrap up the day, I just want to thank him and Risa again. I know they've been incredibly supportive in partnership with everyone here. Tremendous partners for all of us. So with that, leave the Tom to wrap it up.
Oh, I am so exhausted and I am so excited. I mean, those commitments there, I want to commend everyone for stepping forward and making commitments to action that sync up with the with the Project Play strategies. They're all meaningful. I especially want to call out two of them. One would be the YMCA. I want you guys to try and get your minds around the opportunity that is there. I mean, Project Play and its A strategies really exist at like a 30,000-foot level. They're abstract. It's a framework for action. But with the YMCA, with 2,700 branches and 10,000 communities across the U.S., they have facilities, they have credibility, they have networks, they have history. You've got to remember the YMCA created the really it's in my book, I talk about it, the original vision for youth sports in this country. A man named Luther Gulick, who was also a significant figure in the introduction of school sports, in the starting of the AAU, the parks movement in this country, 2,000 parks built in the first 20 years of the 20th century. He was a guiding force for the YMCA more than 100 years ago in coming up with a vision for youth sports that met the needs of that century. Well, what the YMCA is now saying is let's come up with a vision of youth sports that meets the needs of this century. It's a different population. You've got technology. You've got other factors to contend with. And so we're incredibly excited. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Ben, from the YMCA for approaching us and saying, hey, we want to do this. We want to do it right, and we want your help. So we're going to get in there, and we really think this is the tool to create the ground army that will change youth sports in America for the better, make it more accessible to more kids and a more high quality experience. We're incredibly excited to get started there with that. So thank you, guys. I'd also like to express an equal measure of appreciation for Stacy Ulrich. Where is Stacy? There she is right there with Under Armour. You have to think about that opportunity as well. So what Under Armour is doing is they're saying, okay, listen, can you help us tell an amazing story in one of the, in an incredible city that has great challenges. It is urban, it is low income, it has a lot to contend with. So we're going to get in there. You heard the session. Some of you were in the model community session earlier today. What Under Armour is doing is they're going to put the resources behind, getting on the ground every day and helping make this happen. And we're so excited to tell a fantastic story that hopefully a few years from now will really resonate and be a model for other communities across the U.S. And there are plenty that are facing the same type of challenges. And they can lean on Baltimore and say, hey, wow, Under Armour and the Aspen Institute through Project Heartbeat really figured this out. And there's some lessons, and we're so excited to get going on that. So thank you again for Under Armour stepping forward. Then I'd just like to thank everyone who is been part of this. Let me, there you go. And it's a long list. First of all, Nike and Caitlin Morris is here. Nike has been supportive of this project since day one. The Project Play report would not have happened if it was not for Nike and if not for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's support, as well as other organizations. They got in there and contributed not just the resources and the project management to get it done, but really good ideas. When you look at the Project Play report, and there are very simple ideas or big ideas are shrunk down to simple words like, train all coaches, or, encourage sports sampling or otherwise, is because, Nike knows how to craft a message, and they've been very good at it. Just do it and on down the line. And so we had that, we were benefited from having that thought in the course of development of our report. So again, thank you, Caitlin, for all of your support. I'd like to thank the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and Risa Lavisa Moore, who was actually the first person, came to one of our roundtables a few years ago. And she sat right next to John Walsh from ESPN, and sent me a note afterward and said, I really, I like this. And so we got talking, and so it was catalytic. So I don't know if Risa is still in the room here or not. Anyway, but thank you, Risa, and thank you to Sharon Roherty and everyone at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for supporting. We have got new folks who are supporting our project, the sponsors and the partners today. The Harris Family Charitable Foundation, Mount Sinai Hospital, the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. I can't say more about. They have been so generous in providing their ambassadors to be part of our conversations. Grant Hill was supposed to be here today. He got sick. They came up with Mark Hertling immediately, and Mark jumped on it and took charge, and I think did a fantastic job. He's wiped out, so that's why I'm finishing up today. But thank you, Shelley Fall. Thank you, Meredith, Ebony, the whole staff. You guys are unbelievable. The Laureate Sport for Good Foundation, Benita. Where's Benita? Benita had to catch a flight. Thank you, Benita. They've been great. They've been with us all along. We're going down to New Orleans in December. We're going to do like a sort of a mini Project Play Summit down there. Help take their coalition of recreation leaders, bring in some of the new sectors. Walter Isaacson, who is from New Orleans, is going to host that meeting down there. We're very excited to continue to partner with them on that project. Also, I would like to thank the American College of Sports Medicine, Jim Whitehead, where's Jim? There he is. There you go. And to figure, Mr. 3 a.m. email Jim. Yeah. The LA 84 Foundation, Renata Simril, the terrific backbone organization, and Renata has a lot of energy in this space, and really welcome her into this collective conversation that we have moving forward. The American Heart Association. Lori Whistle, somewhere in the building, maybe. They've been supportive all along, and brought in the kids with the jump ropes. Let's see who else. So Bill Mayer, of course, who is a mentor of mine. Is Bill? There he is. There you go, Bill. Bill's been supportive of this project since day one, and again, it would not have happened. This thing does not happen unless a lot of people get behind it. I appreciate everybody saying, "Oh, Tom and Risa." Yeah, we have worked really hard, but nothing good gets done. We all know that unless a lot of people get behind something, and so Bill is one of those, clearly. The First Lady, oh my God, did she hit that ball out of the park, huh? I mean, oh, holy cow. No, she was authentic. She, made a call to action. She was very direct. She was very sincere. I think I can't wait to go back and watch the thing in full 2 or 3 times just to really take it all in. So thank you, First Lady Michelle Obama, and a special thanks to her brother Craig Robinson, who's been involved with our project since the get-go and made that happen. He put a call into her and said, yeah, we can, looks like it's on our schedule. You can't announce it. This is like 4 months ago. And we were only able to announce it last week because, of course, Secret Service concerns and otherwise. But thank you, Craig, for making that happen. Michael Wilbon, in the middle of the NBA season, making the time to moderate that conversation. Billie Jean King, rock star. Yeah. I'd like to thank all of the volunteers who have, and there are many, from the Aspen Institute, Friends of Risa's, a whole bunch of different folks who've really contributed, including my own family, these folks right here, Kellen, Anna, my wife Christine, Cole, and my mom, who, did I make you proud today? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for your support, all the weekends, all the, working through dinner. So thank you. You're very much a part of this. A couple final things here real quickly. We're going to send out a survey at 6:22 exactly, right? Is that what the schedule? Whatever. You're going to get one. Please fill out. It's a post-event survey, but it's a really cool post-event survey. We want to get your feedback on the event, but we also want to know how you'd like to engage with Project Play moving forward. For instance, as we get this project started in Baltimore, if your organization would like to say, this is how we could potentially help you tell a great story in that city, let us know. Fill out the box. We'll review it and we'll follow up with you and see if there's an appropriate opportunity to engage. It's just 10 questions. It won't take too long to get through, but please, it'll be very helpful to us and also capturing the impact of Project Play moving forward, because it's always difficult with these convenings and how do you know we're making a difference? But the survey will help us figure that out. So please just take five or 10 minutes in doing that. And I want to thank you, most of all, for coming here, because as much as I care about this topic, as much as Risa does, you're the same, okay? This was, there are a lot of people in the space. This is one thing I love about Project Play, is the people who care about this topic are magnetized to it. And they just get in there and they want to offer their ideas and they want to be at this meeting. This thing sold out 3 weeks ago. And it was, we had some big names, but it was 75% sold simply on the concept of we want to be part of the Project Play conversation. It wasn't necessarily the attractors, who of course took it over the top, of course, and we're very grateful for that. But the point is, thank you for being part of this conversation and contributing your time and all of the thought that goes into it. So. Yeah, and so I think that's it. We will see you. We'll see you next year. Okay. We got a reception. Grab some past hors d'oeuvres, drinks. Let's have a little bit of party. Okay. Thank you all.